So we are talking about the state of Wuthering Waves right now. This is a video from 1010. If you don't know who 1010 is, he is a very big, content creator in the space. He covered Wuthering Waves whenever it first came out, and also a lot of other games as well, not just Wuthering Waves. But again, very, very cool content creator. I've seen a lot of his stuff. And again, it's really cool to see that like some people are giving their honest reviews on the game, even later on in the game. Because obviously, it's the popular thing to do whenever a game first comes out, you know, like, oh, my thoughts on the game after they played like 2 hours of it and they say, oh, it's trash or something like that. But 1010, it seems like he's put in a lot of hours and a lot of, time into Wuthering Waves, and it would be interesting to see what he kind of thinks about the state of Wuthering Waves, especially given his past with other gacha games and knowledge of other gacha games to see, what can kind of be improved. It's been around an hour and 20 minutes. Thanks.
I want to take a moment to talk about the state of Wuthering Waves with you today, because after 6 months of release, I think the game is not in a great state. Don't get me wrong.
Oh, okay. Not in a great state. Like, if we just go off my opinion here, I think that the game is in a pretty good state. I don't think it's like the best. Obviously, it could be like Genshin levels where it's like absolutely breaking everything, but I don't think it's doing terribly either. I think, Kura Games are listening to a lot of, feedback and stuff like that, which is great to see. And obviously some banner sales haven't been great, but with the improvement of the recent gacha, revenue stuff, it does seem like, they are improving, and it just depends on what character, what updates, and how the kind of, updates align with whenever the revenue comes out. But I'm interested to see why he thinks that this isn't a very good state right now for Wuthering Waves.
You're wrong. I love Wuthering Wave. I play this game daily, and I even stream this game almost regularly.
Yes, this is me.
On Twitch, twitch.tv/I'm 1010.
That's cool.
But I think the game is really good in its core. The characters are really, really fun. And when it comes down to gacha game, the main thing that you pay for is to collect cool characters that are cool and fun. And they do this extremely well. Yeah, it's just that they don't have anything else. I think a
lot of the Wuthering Waves characters are really, really well designed. And I think that's one of Wuthering Waves' strong points, is just the overall design and the feel of the world. Not just the characters, the land, everything around it, the story, the cutscenes, all of that. It's very well made up, and it just looks nice. And yeah, I'm interested to see, because he said that that's the only thing it has, but I'm sure that Wuthering Waves does have a couple of other things.
I think Wuthering Wave characters are extremely fun. Each of them has some unique mechanics that make them super satisfying, super fun to watch, and they're all super flashy without being overly on top too difficult and stuff like that. On top of that, their thematic is on point every single time. Jian is like a peak husbando characters. In it, it's a peak Bambi characters. And then you got all the other characters like Changli, super fire characters, like a phoenix stashing around the battlefield. You got Jinji, who is completely more accurate because she got the power of Jue on her side. And you summon this big ass lasers with Jue in your battle. I think
it was really refreshing to see a lot of these kind of character designs come into the game as well. Obviously with Genshin, they've been a little bit boring with some of the kind of ultimates and stuff. But it's cool to see that they have these cinematic kind of things, especially Jinshi and Jue kind of being a one character. I think they look really, really cool, and I think that's what Wuthering Waves really excel at.
These are super on point thematic, and they feel really, really great to play. But the problem is, I feel like the game just doesn't have enough content to warrant you to want to log in to play the game, which means you don't get to play with the characters. The characters are fun, but you gotta have a reason to play with these characters after all. And right now, the way I would describe it is Wuthering Wave feels like a game where you have a 6-week patch cycles, but 1 week of content every 6 weeks of patch cycle.
So what he doesn't like is the kind of break in between the games. And I've talked about this on some previous videos as well. I don't think it's the end of the world if they have these kind of patch cycles and stuff like that. I think that Wuthering Waves is trying to respect your time a lot more with a lot of what Wuthering Waves is doing and what are the other gacha games are doing, because there's so many gacha games coming out where you don't have enough time, and sometimes you think, oh, I don't really want to get involved in a game that has so much hours and so many hours that you need to put into it. Now obviously for some people who want to play that kind of game, maybe Wuthering Waves isn't for you, and that maybe, you just want to play a game where you can just grind it infinitely. But I don't think that having a 6-week patch cycle and 1 week of content is the end of the world. I think that, it is a kind of issue that it does have, and I've seen a lot of people kind of, not really enjoy it, which I think is totally fine. But also, there are many other gacha games out there as well, which you could be playing, alongside it, or just, doing something else while, you wait for the next update. Now, I do agree there could be something a little bit more in between this kind of 6-week patch cycle. Obviously, as he says, 1 week of content, which, I think that, some people do have 1 week of content, which does suck. But at the same time, you know, I think they should add some stuff for the rest of the week, which, you know, I'm not expecting them to make a big quest or a main quest or something like that for you to play for the entirety of 6 weeks. But I do expect them to add some nice events and things like that. But I think with things like Encore Story and also, you know, the events we've had recently with the simulation battle stuff, I think it has kind of improved. Now, obviously, this is only an update that came out in this phase, so, you know, 1010, you know, obviously has taken all of the updates into account here, meaning that, you know, there's only been one update with a pretty decent kind of cycle. But again, it would be nice to see Wuthering Waves do that more so that this kind of ends and that, you know, people actually kind of enjoy this rather than saying, oh, there isn't enough content. What I love about Wuthering Waves ults and such is that they pause the game around them while they cast, so they can have a really long dramatic animation without sacrificing other stuff in game. Yeah, I definitely think that is a bonus of Wuthering Waves. I think that, you know, they definitely cook whenever it comes to a lot of these animations, and they've taken a lot of inspiration from some other games. If you think about, like, I don't know if you ever played Guilty Gear, stuff like that. I've been playing that a lot. So again, they have like a lot of these animations where the whole game like pretty much pauses, and then they do this really big dramatic move, which I think is great.
This is super noticeable because at the end of the patch, they always just recycle the same event. Wouldn't that be like the exploration event where you get like 100 survey point, or like the double drop event without...
Yeah, they definitely are kind of recycling a lot of events. I do think that should kind of end. Like, they should have like some recycled events, but there should be more like newer events too.
Fail, it's always just recycle event every single patch where you just basically do the same thing as you're doing, but you get more material. Speaking of material, I feel like there isn't like a strong reason for you to acquire more material to develop your characters, because the endgame is just so easy. I feel like the only reason to really acquire material is if you want to perfect your character's max out.
So I think what he's saying there is that he wants harder content, which again, I think that is a very valid thing. I think harder content should be introduced in the game. Again, I haven't really tried much of like Tower of Adversity and things like that. That just isn't really something I'm interested in, but I probably will try it in the future. But I don't know how hard it is at the moment. It was quite hard whenever I first started out, but whenever I had other stuff, you know, whenever people get more levels and get more leveled up, I'm sure it does become a lot easier for a lot of people. So if they added more harder content, like more stuff like the holograms, which are incredibly hard. Now, obviously, the holograms are a really good example of some good hard stuff that's in the game, where it requires more skill than you building up stuff. But also at the same time, it is the holograms. It will just keep resetting and there's nothing really new about it. So it would be nice to see something like similar to that, but that kind of changes over time and that, you know, it's something that someone can play. Well, you know, we have a little bit of this downtime between the patches.
Absolutely every single thing, because you really care about them, or to prepare for new characters release, which if you're a free-to-play, you probably won't get every characters anyway. The tower in Wuthering Wave endgame right now feels like a pure, and by pure I mean you basically just go in and you do a rotation for like 2 minutes and you kill whatever come on the way, and that's it. You don't need to care about dodging, you don't care about parrying, which is supposed to be the core of the game. It isn't some kind of like skillful combat where you carefully maneuver
it is quite easy.
The enemy. There's like no dynamic at all. You just go in, you hit your button, and they just die. And I did this by proving it as well, right? I recently did a blindfold run on Ling Yang where I was able to completely 3 stars.
Ling Yang's like one of the worst characters as well.
Level 100 enemies, and they're supposed to be the tankiest enemy of the tower. In my blindfold run, you can see I basically just memorized my entire rotation, and I basically just pressed all my button in a certain order, and then everything just worked out, and that's all really
it does take a little bit of work to do that.
I didn't do a single dodge because I was blindfolded, or I didn't do a single parry. Well, I did some accidental parry, but none of the parry were like a skillful timing thing. I basically just mashed all my button in the right order, which is my rotation, and the enemy died. It got to a point where the tower feels more like a chore to clear every reset than a challenge.
Yeah, I think that's something that we've had an issue with other games as well. Obviously, the Spiral Abyss is something that you can kind of compare the Tower of Adversity to, and people have gotten bored of the Spiral Abyss now. I don't do it like ever, because again, I can't be asked. I can't be asked just to do the same thing over and over again, and I think that is something that, you know, Wuthering Waves does need to kind of fix and kind of, you know, make better, whether that is they improve the Tower of Adversity itself, or just give you something else to play that could be a little bit better and less of a damage check and more of just a skill check.
Especially because this is true for every single boss and every single enemy they have put in the tower so far. There hasn't been a new enemy where you have to change up your strategy. It's always you put the same team in, you click your button in the same order, and they die. I'll spend my daily on same thing. The Heron, Genshin, always do the same.
Did he forget to mute his clip over the top?
is actually harder. Now I know people hate that I mention in Impact all the time,
I
but
mentioned
I think
Genshin.
it's true, and I'm talking about this using my previous experience back in like 3.0 or something like that. I think back in my days when I was playing Genshin, the endgames were actually a lot more challenging than the current state of Wuthering endgame. Specifically, I
that's fair
remember there was
enough.
stuff like where they're like 2 Geovision, you have to like position yourself in a certain way so they will like come to you, and you have to like make sure you have to like go to the wall, and you have to like make sure they are like walking in a certain way and stuff like that. And then of course
Yeah.
Genshin Impact is a little more janky, so therefore it's like a more challenge because you gotta like funnel your energy.
Yeah, I think there was some things that made the Spiral Abyss a lot harder, but like at the kind of core of it, it was kind of boring because you were just doing the same stuff. Now, I don't think the Tower University is any better. If anything, I think the Spiral Abyss is a tiny bit better just because it's a little bit more challenging. But yeah, I think that they definitely need to add something a bit more like of a skill check into this kind of thing to kind of like get people more excited for it and to actually make people think rather than just doing the same inputs over and over again, like 1010 is showing us. They literally did it blindfolded. Again, that's pretty, it must be pretty easy if you can do it blindfolded.
You gotta save your energy for the next floor. And there's also the Abyss card system where it gives you a little more dynamic in Genshin Impact.
Yeah.
Now I want to make a very big disclaimer that I don't know if this is true with the current states of Genshin Impact.
Okay.
I kind of watch my friends play sometimes and I see them just like hitting a thing that stand in the middle and like do nothing else, so maybe I'm wrong. But
Okay.
I actually have been recently playing a little bit of Genshin Impact just because one of my friends like got me back into it and it has been really fun so far. And I'll be trying the new Abyss sometimes next week on stream, so you might want to tune in just to see like if I'll
That bit of a
change.
plug there.
Now don't get me wrong, Wedding Wave do pump out banger content from time to time. Specifically,
definitely.
like when they added a new hologram Catalyst was like perfect. I think hologram
Again, I think the hologram is something that they do really well. So maybe if they like kind of think of something similar to that they can do, I think a lot of players would be happy. And also, I think Wuthering Waves does excel at a lot of the other stuff, you know? I think that this is one of Wuthering Waves' downsides. I don't think that like the state of Wuthering Waves is terrible because of this. Because again, we've seen that the story is good. We've seen that a lot of the characters are really good. And they've got some cool designs. It's just like the bosses that we have to fight, which is an ongoing issue with a lot of gacha games anyways. Obviously, with Genshin, a lot of people have been angry with the Spiral Abyss, with other kind of boss things in the past, which again is totally acceptable. And that's the same with Honkai and other games like that too. So it's just something that Wuthering Waves and Kuro Games need to get around. Again, I think it will take a little bit of time and also some community feedback to tell them, you know, what kind of thing we want. But with them adding more holograms and things like that, it definitely seems like they do know what we want. They do know that, oh, hey, they're kind of liking the holograms. Let's add some more of them. So hopefully they'll notice that we aren't really liking the Tower Adversity. Obviously, videos like this will help to kind of tell them that. And that maybe they'll make some kind of change to make it a little bit better and a little bit more skill-based rather than damage-based.
Kraus is like one of the best fight ever.
Yeah.
It's like actually
I
dynamic.
can see why he
It's,
likes
like,
him more.
Basically play to the game core essence, like dodging, parrying, and then doing your character's combo all in one and stuff like that. Inferno Rider was a little janky because you can't just spam meteor, but something like that I feel like are cool. It's just like we kind of get them once in a blue moon. The same way in Elusive Realm, it's a really cool game mode whenever they add new characters, because just like, oh, you can play the new characters in your regular way in your hologram and your tower, and then here is a new way to make them super insane that it's also fun to play. The Shangli Yao combo in the Elusive Realm was super fun.
I think that's what the new simulated battle thing does well as well. I think they definitely like kind of give you a new perspective on how combat can be and how much damage you can do. Obviously, it's like due to a lot of stuff like with like buffs and things like that in cards. So maybe they are trying to experiment with it with some events to see if people like it. And maybe they'll add it to some other stuff in the future.
You like basically perma time stop and stuff like that. I think all of these are super fun and super cool to play whenever we do get them. Again, new characters, super fun to play because Wedding Wave characters are really well designed. They're just fun to play in general.
Yeah.
Elusive Realm game mode or other game mode, super fun to play whenever we get a new one, usually followed by new characters. And of course, new hologram or new boss in general are super cool, super fun to figure out like how they actually work.
Yeah.
The thing is that there's so little. It always feels like they give you like a taste. They give you like a bite, right? They're
so
like,
more
this
content.
feels good. This tastes good. I want more, but there's no more. You always get like just a bite and there's like no more, and it left you like.
Yeah, I definitely think what Wuthering Waves could do in the future is maybe just add a few more levels, add a few more difficulties, because again, it would hit that kind of thing of like, A, the bosses aren't hard enough, so, you know, just make harder ones, and B, it would give someone something to do for a longer amount of time, which means, you know, you have less of a gap between in this like 6-week cycle kind of thing, this 6-week cycle problem, where you've got nothing to do, and instead, you've got these really hard bosses, which you're probably, grinding or trying to fight every time to win. And I think that's why the holograms are so good, because they are very, very difficult. And it takes a couple of attempts, if not tons of attempts to do. And, people finally get through it. A little bit like an Elden Ring boss, which I think is great. And whenever, like, Wuthering Waves first came out, people were like, oh, this is like the Elden Ring of gacha games, which I don't think it's really the case now. But whenever the game first came out, this is what people were saying, and that's what a lot of people played the game for, and they haven't really seen that apart from with the holograms. So maybe if they could add some of that stuff to the game too, that would be very, very interesting. But again, we're just going to have to wait and see what Korea Games kind of say about this. And, we're going to have to keep making videos and, posts like this, kind of talking about this kind of stuff.
Undesired, and I feel like that's what's the problem is right now. It just feels so bad. I get that where the problem is because Kuro Games, unlike HoYoverse, doesn't have the same amount of funding. In fact, they have significantly less funding, so they can't pump out content the same way like Genshin Impact.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Right, and
they still got quite a bit.
Kind of one of the things that make Genshin shine right now is because they have so much money, they're able to just dump into it and just pump content.
Yeah,
when they do a 6-week patch cycles, I think they get like 4 weeks of content, right? And they're like actual content, not like the survey, not like the spinning hamsters, not like the double drop. Right, I logged into Genshin just like recently, and then there was like this co-op event, which was actually surprisingly,
I mean, that
really
is a reused
fun.
event,
now,
by
I
the
feel like
way.
I was biased because I haven't played Genshin in a long time, and I came back to it.
I don't know if Tencent knows that, but that is also a recycled event. So like, if you're saying that like recycled events are a bad thing, I think the Genshin do also do the same thing. But I think that a lot of these events have much more like longer time periods, which makes it much more fun because you put in a lot more time. You have fun with friends and co-op or whatever. Whereas Lolo's campaign is a little bit different because you just go do some quests and then pretty much spin a wheel, which isn't very great, but I don't think that was meant to be the main game mode. I think the main game mode, at least for this phase, is the simulation battle, whatever it's called, where you can actually do a ton of damage, which I think is a lot more fun. And we've also had some co-op events in the past with like fighting some things. I think the last update was a co-op event. So yeah, maybe they'll improve on that. I don't know.
I was just like, oh look, it's my Shangling again. Boom, 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 boom. So it was like fresh. It was like nostalgia feeling, so it was fun. But also I was like with my
the nostalgia is probably
like that.
Part
Speaking of Genshin friends, I feel like that's another big one. It just there is no community content for Wuthering Wave because the community is a lot.
The event isn't a reuse, by the way. This one specifically is new. The only similarity it has to previous events is that it's co-op. I mean, a lot of the coin-based and kind of jumping around things is very similar to an event that I played in the past, though. Like, obviously, it might not be like a rip and like they've just like redone the same event, but I feel like they've used a lot of the same mechanics and stuff. I don't know.
Smaller, where for Genshin Impact, the community is significantly bigger. So like, even when you're not playing the games, it feels like you can still interact with the Genshin Impact. Also, again, HoYoverse have way more funding to host these like offline event.
Yeah, the coin part. Yeah, so yeah, exactly.
It's like this Arvin that it's like an hour drive from me, and they host like a bunch of HoYoverse event. I think for Halloween they have like a HoYoween event. There's like a Madonna land event for Genshin Impact, and these are cool to see. These are like, oh, I can still enjoy the game in ways that I didn't expect outside of the game physically with other people. I think that's super cool to see. Something Wuthering Wave probably won't see for a long time.
Yeah, I think that's just down to Genshin and Honkai and HoYoverse just being a very established game, established company, and obviously people have been playing it for ages, so people are going to set up new events. Obviously, it's a bigger game than Wuthering Waves in the first place, so they're going to hold more of these kind of LAN events. Now, maybe Wuthering Waves, I think they are planning on doing a concert soon, or at least I saw something like that. But again, maybe they'll plan like a concert or something like that where people can actually show up. And that's just something they need to get onto after, they've gotten through a lot of the basics. Obviously, you've been talking about, the Tower of Diversity and stuff like that, which needs to be improved. So they need to get through that first, make the game pretty decent, and then players will start to come in. And then after that, you can start releasing these events and LAN events. Obviously, I don't think that event he's talking about was like an official event or anything. But again, it'll bring in more players, which will, lead a lot of non-official events to actually like pop up. But that's also one of the 7 of 8 different stages. Oh, okay.
Unfortunately, they don't even have the funding to come to like Anime Expo in America. So it's only like limited to China right now. And I feel like that's kind of sucks. Like an anime convention deal.
But again, that could be improved in the future.
Genshin Impact cosplayers, well, just because the game is bigger, but that also means that you get to have more fun as a Genshin Impact player going around taking a photo of your favorite cosplay and stuff like that. Or even recently, I
do think that like Wuthering Waves have done a good job at actually turning up to events though. Maybe not so much in North America and places like that, and like the UK, but over at like Tokyo Game Show, places like that, they have shown up, and they're even the main sponsors of one of Korea's biggest kind of gaming thing. I think it was. They're the main sponsors of it. So they do have a lot of money that they can work with. It just means that they're not really coming over to the West at the moment. They've done a couple things, But again, it's something that they do need to work on a little bit, but hopefully we can see that coming in the future. But so far, I don't think they're doing too badly whenever it comes to events. Obviously, yeah, I spoke to Ryuku, who went to the Wuthering Waves booth. He said it was pretty good. And the same thing can be said for some of the other events too. I think like the stuff in Korea, them being a main sponsor does prove how much money they have to kind of work on this kind of stuff.
To a shop in Los Angeles with one of my friends, and I was surrounded by Genshin Impact merch. Now, there was like a small section of official Wuthering Wave merch, and we did buy some. I bought like a
See, I think it is cool they do have that.
Ling Yang like standee, right? And my friend got like a little scar keychain.
Yeah.
But the point is still like when we're walking through the stores, there's like so little Wuthering Wave things that I'm like, oh look, this is Ling Yang.
Again, I do think this is partially because it is a new game, new company, and everything like that.
This
oh
is
my god, my
Yan,
voice,
but
like
we're
that.
surrounded by so many like Genshin Impact, Honkai Star Rails merch and stuff like that, and you get like, ah, Jin, sorry, Venti, and that's like just different, you know.
Yeah, that's true.
Speaking of Venti, if you're wondering what this thing is, this is the VTuber that I'm currently working on. A lot of it's inspired by Venti. You can kind of see the reassemble and kind of why it's green. You can check out 210 VT on Twitter for more detail as well as just follow it. But to basically summarize all my yapping, I feel like the game is just really dry, and that's really it. Now, I understand that it's not really Crew Games' fault for like, you know, not having the same amount of money and community as Hoyoverse, because that like just is so big in comparison. Yeah. Right. But as a player, it just left me like undecided when I get like a taste of the game that I want to play, and then there's like nothing left. Because again, I do think the core game is great, right? Like the characters are so fun. Maybe something like a boss rush hologram challenge would be cool, where you like fight one hologram after the other. That would be like super difficult, but that give like a big reason for like max their characters. Maybe you can even like switch in the characters between each hologram and stuff like that. Wait, that actually sounds kind of cool. Oh, do that.
Start submitting that feedback.
I guess I'm back to Genshin again. Huh. I mean, everyone say 5.0 is really good, and everyone keep asking me to check it out. So welcome home, cheater. Okay, bye.
But I mean, that's a pretty cool video. He did talk about a lot of the issues that are going on with stuff that's going on in Wuthering Waves. Some of them I think isn't like the biggest deal in the world. I think that overall, I don't think the state of Wuthering Waves is bad. I think that it's fine. I think they are doing fine. Obviously, there are aspects that they can work on, like he said, the Tower of Adversity, stuff like that, which I do think is a very, very valid thing to talk about. And hopefully Wuthering Waves do listen and kind of, you know, bring us some more stuff that can improve that. And obviously, you know, 1010 has gone back to Genshin Impact and stuff, and there are some positive things in Genshin Impact that, you know, Wuthering Waves could learn from, and maybe they'll take some from that as well. I don't know. We'll have to see in the future. But again, a very good video. If you guys want to go give that a like, I definitely recommend you do. I'll put it in chat, and it'll also be down in the video. If you guys want to come join us live on Twitch, this is where I'll be streaming this kind of content. Again, we'll be doing reaction videos and just also stuff to do with Wuthering Waves and things like that. I definitely recommend coming over here. And yeah, that's about it for that one.